All right. So this book I found on Amazon last year, and I just love the cover. I love this painting of Frida. I think it's really beautiful. Let me move my little supplies out of the way. And what I thought was interesting about it, it talks about, it's like a brief, like 2 pages, maybe 3, of the different artists and little snippets about their work. And look at this picture of Monet by his water lilies. Don't you love that? And so it goes through before 1500, 16, 17, all the way on to present. And it lists all the major artists. And there are very few women in here, which I think that's yet another topic to discuss and start looking into the women who made their mark on the art world. But it was predominantly men here. So it goes through this, it's just a beautiful, beautiful photographs. Let me turn this light off because I think it's, nope, you can't see. Now it's not working. Okay, now it's working. Okay, sorry, it's shiny there. Let me move this over. The pages are really pretty. But you can see, now here's a woman, Elizabeth Vigée Lebrun. I think that's how you say her name. That's really very beautiful. So it's a nice book. Like if you want to pick an artist to study, you can go through here and just get a brief synopsis of his life, their works, and then you can go from there. So I found Gustav Klimt, and we all know his work, The Kiss, the beautiful paintings, and there's just one page, but as you know, Egon Schiele studied with him. He was, I think, his protege. So you can kind of see the different, actually this is a Schiele. Okay, this one is, because Klimt refused to make any self-portraits of himself, he asked Schiele to do that. So you can see by the hands. And I love these little fish here and the symbolism in this. So this is a really great way to kind of study the artists and how they make marks and how they render different subjects. So I selected this drawing here. I love this. I love the turn of her body, and I think it's a really great way to study the figure. So when I was drawing, I took about 45 minutes. I have a sketch of it. And what I was looking at, and this is how I study it. I'm gonna zoom in just a little bit. I put it on my laptop and then I zoomed in so I could look at all the line work. So how he, there are these, I think it was, he painted it with like maybe a brush. I don't know how big this piece is, and that would be a good thing for me to research. But just this idea of her chin, he didn't even render her head because he was really interested in the shape and I think the fabric, the folds of the little chemise. So when you're looking at the form, there's always going to be kind of this line of action. And so he's captured that here. And then, so since she's sitting on this hip, there's this length on this side and there's this contraction on this side. So when I'm drawing it, sometimes I look at the shapes, the negative shapes as well, like this negative shape right here, trying to, like a little puzzle piece, which I talk about. And there's a little shape here. And then I started, once I sketched it out, I really zoomed in with my computer and started looking at his lines and how he overlapped fabric and these delicate lines here just to suggest her bust. And then the work here, the little wrinkles in the chemise. And then this, when I first looked at it, I made a straight line. But then when I started studying it more, I looked at how this was softened and it kind of tucks in there. Then because she's sitting and there is the seam in the front and then the seam continues down, but as you see, it's moved over because of how the fabric is probably folded. And then how all of these lines kind of go to the center of the body where she's sitting and her legs are folded in. But I zoomed in and I pulled out all of these beautiful lines. I really studied how he overlapped the fabric. And when we get into, if you can see it here, there were so many intricate little geometric shapes, and I don't know what they are. I don't know if they're like parts of the fabric, but they're little marks. And then there's this little ruffle that seems random to me, but I'm sure it's something that's folded over and maybe underneath her. So I kind of went through it and tried my best to capture it. So I will show you in, I think, my little book here. But it's a good idea, like if you have your tablet, to zoom in and study the lines and how, because he didn't draw it exactly as he saw it. It wasn't, like a photorealistic drawing. It's just he's capturing the movement, the energy, the twist of the shape of the body, which I find very interesting. All right, here it is. So here's my little drawing. And I worked very hard at trying to capture these. Mine aren't exactly like it, but I was trying to get that motion of pulling in the fabric as it's tightening in towards where her legs are coming together. And I, looked at, where that calf is and corresponding with this, her part of a little pantaloon. I don't know what, a chemise, I don't know what it's called. I wish I do. And then how this is overlapped. So then I started looking at the shapes here of her body. I think he painted her body first, probably in like a watercolor, because it's very loose. And then he did the white over the top, but I'm not going to do that because it'll take forever to dry. So what I'm going to do though, is I have two watercolors here. One's kind of I think like a raw sienna, and this one's like a burnt sienna, something like close. And then I have some pastels that are in those colors. And then I found this colored pencil too. I put clear gesso on here and I just drew it in charcoal, and I used an HB. So and I have some ink here because I want to do her stockings in ink. And I found this Higgins Black Magic, and it is waterproof drawing ink that I found when I was cleaning out my little cupboard. Okay, so I think I'm gonna just kind of maybe mix up a little bit, and I'm gonna test it over here. It's always good to test out what you're doing before you go right into it. So I want a little bit of this earthy skin tone that he has. So I'm just gonna put a little bit of water on her body and her arm here. There's a little touch of her arm that's back here. And there, I'll go down to her legs later. So I'm gonna start with this and just kind of put it in just to have a little tone. And it's gonna look different because of the paper that I'm using. And then maybe touch it with, because he has like these darker splotches, it looks like to me, of the raw sienna, which I think is interesting because it just brings some interesting form. And I did not do a good job here capturing that arm, but I'm just gonna go with it. There's a lot more up here. And I just like this kind of sketchy, washy color on it. I'm trying to recreate that. And then when I look down at her legs, there are these little puzzle pieces. If you look at this, it almost looks like a little crown where her ruffle and then her stocking kind of meet. There's a space there that is her leg. And then there's another little kind of weird triangle right there. And so I'm just gonna go in and try to capture that. And if I did it on white paper, it would look a little different. There's a little bit up here too. And so I'm gonna also add this into it, and then her ankle, which I'm going off the page. I'm almost wondering if he used pen or, I'm not sure, but okay. And there's a hint of her body underneath. So I may go back after it dries, but I want to go in with white pastel. I think that he may have used white paint or white gouache on that. And then there's this little bow here. So I'm going to I have a skinnier brush over here. I love just this accent. This is so beautiful, this little red bow. And it's not completely filled in, which I think is pretty. And I like the lines on top, which I may go back with like a fine pen and add that. All right, so I have this ink and I'm gonna work on her stockings next. So I like to add the little bit of water first so that it kind of, it pools and it doesn't get stuck in one spot. So I'm going around the periphery of the edge of it because I see a darker concentration of that. It comes all the way up to here. And there's some dark value up there. And then I can just move it around with my brush. So I'm not being very heavy-handed with this. And then I can go in with my charcoal pencil and kind of give it a little cleanup here. Or I could use Stabilo, which I don't have at my table right now. And I can add extra layers after this dries because it'll probably, oh, it's bleeding into that. And I don't have oh well, that's okay. It's just in my journal. I can clean that up. Always have a paper towel on hand when you get a blob, but that's okay. I can deal with it. I can put something over it. You can always cover it up. All right. All right, well, so I'm gonna let that just sit there. I might put another layer of ink on while it's drying, but let me close this because we know what can happen. All right, so now I have a white pastel here and I'm just going to look at where the white is on here. And I love that there's just these little touches of it to give us the idea of this kind of transparent chemise that she has on. This is a very good thing to do when you feel like you don't know what to do. When you go in your art studio and you see everything in there and you don't know what to create. By doing this, you kind of you get out of your own head because you're studying someone else's drawing and how they make lines. You're really focusing on that opposed to focusing on that you don't have any ideas or you're feeling frustrated or stuck, because we all feel that way. And it really, what it is, it's resistance. It's resistance telling you, that little voice in your head that we all love so much. Okay. So what I tried to capture were these tiny little, let me pull it down a little bit more. You can see her. I thought these are really beautiful, these little folds and lines. So I want to make sure I don't cover that up. And it's interesting, there were these little like circles. I'm not sure what he was trying to capture, but I just find it very interesting to do this. I'm going to grab another brush to kind of blend this a little bit. Let's see. I have a dry brush here. Just want to kind of push it around. I think it'll be prettier. So what can you take away from doing this besides, freeing yourself up a little bit, which we all need? But I think it's study. It's what he did with, Klimt. He studied with Klimt and his techniques and his way of creating. And you find an artist you're very interested in, or maybe it's an artist that you don't know a lot about. And we all are very intrigued by, you know, there's the popular artist, but maybe look for someone who's maybe a little bit more obscure. And if you're drawn to, let's say, the colors they use, maybe it's a landscape, or it could be an abstract. And ask yourself the question. That's what I always do. Why do I love this? What is it about this that I love? And it may just be their color palette. So maybe you just do a color study based off of the painting, like this painting of Frida's that was in the book. This one, this painting. I love that dark background with the waves and the colors in her coat. And so it might be a great color study for me to do. I don't necessarily want to draw that portrait, but I love how her face, I love the colors in her eyes. So I would just sit there and study and put it on my computer. And then it kind of enriches my personal vocabulary of working with colors and marks and lines. And it's just a wonderful process to something to do for yourself and your art. And then you learn a little bit more about what inspired the artist, which is always really important to understand what inspires them. Because it's usually a collection of things. It's not just one thing. So it was very complicated down here as all of these lines kind of come to the center here. And so I don't want, that's the important part. They're all moving in this direction. And I have this little ruffle. And the white really jumps off the page in this. A little bit here, which is all kind of pretty, I think. Okay, and I have this colored pencil. I might just bring in a little bit here, and then there's some black lines kind of defining that little ribbon that's outside, so it's not a perfectly rendered little bow. I like the lines that go past and out of the line of the bow. So it's something to think about. I might like that, to use that kind of technique and something that wouldn't even have to be a bow, just something I'm drawing where you see the kind of searching lines. Okay, I think I'm gonna try a little bit more ink here. And then I think it's pretty close to where I spent, I don't know if I mentioned this, I can't remember, but I spent about 45 minutes on the drawing, and oh my gosh, that's a lot of ink. I've got to rescue it. Okay, oh no, there, okay, rescued. Good thing my kitchen is right there. Okay, now she has this giant calf. Oh no, it's the Facebook Live disaster. All right, too much ink. All right, let me just move this around. There we go. Even it out a little bit. Okay, it just needs to dry now. I have too much water on it. So now I can go back in this and add a little bit more. I think I might put a little bit of pink in here. Maybe a little pastel. All right, I probably should leave well enough alone before I mess it up. So I just want to go back through next and just kind of define my lines. This is a great one to just really study fabric too, the way he overlaps the fabric. Okay. All right, there she is. I like it. All right, I'm gonna turn it around and then you can ask me questions if you have questions. And just as a reminder, I'll save this to the group, but I will also edit it a little bit and put it on YouTube so it's easier to find. All right, let's put this side by side here. Not too bad. Let me lift it up. Not too bad, huh? Anyway, thank you for being here, and I will see you next week. All right, bye.